Welcome back to Sacred Texts Explained. Last time, Genesis 1 and 2, the ordered cosmos and the garden built like a temple. Today, chapters 3 and 4, the serpent, the fruit, the first exile, and the first murder. First, we'll follow the story, then open up the Hebrew underneath it. Chapter 2 ended with two humans in the garden, naked and unashamed. Chapter 3 opens on a single jarring word, and it's a pun the Hebrew reader hears at once. The last verse called them arummim, naked. The first verse now calls the serpent arum, crafty, shrewd. Naked innocence meets naked cunning, separated by a single letter. The serpent, nachash, does not command, it asks. Did God really say you must not eat from any tree? It reframes a garden full of yes into a single, resented no. The temptation begins not with the fruit, but with a question designed to make generosity sound like restriction. You will not surely die, the serpent says. You will be like God, knowing good and evil. In chapter 2, we met that phrase, tavara, the power to define right and wrong for yourself. The offer is autonomy, to become the author of the moral law rather than to trust it. The oldest temptation is not to do evil, but to decide it. She takes and eats, and gives to the man who is with her, and he eats. Then their eyes are opened. But the first thing this new knowledge reveals is not divine wisdom, it is their own nakedness. They reach not for a throne, but for fig leaves. The promise to become like God's delivers only shame. Then a sound, God walking in the garden in the cool of the day. And the first question God asks in the Bible is not an accusation, but a summons, ayeka, where are you? The one who knows all things calls out, seeking. The humans, once at home, are now hiding among the trees they were meant to keep. God asks a second question, who told you that you were naked? It is not for information. The questions in the garden are the questions of a parent or a judge drawing the truth up into the open. Shame wants only to hide, and gently, God's questions will not let it. Even now, the invitation is the same. Come out and say what you have done. What follows is the first blame. The man points to the woman and to God who gave her. The woman points to the serpent. No one says, I did this. The fracture that began with the fruit now runs between the humans, between them and God, between humanity and the ground itself. One act, and every relationship in the garden bends. The judgments come in order. To the serpent, enmity and a strange, forward-leaning promise, the woman's offspring will strike your head, and you will strike his heel. Readers across the centuries have called this the proto-evangelium, the first glimmer of gospel, a hint, buried in a curse, that the story of ruin is not the end of the story. To the woman and the man come two labors, and the Hebrew binds them with one word, itsavon, painful toil. She will bring forth children in itsavon. He will draw bread from the ground in itsavon. The same word falls on the woman's cradle and the man's field. Their callings endure, but now each is shot through with struggle. And the ground itself is cursed, the adamah. Remember from chapter 2, the human Adam was drawn from the adamah, the ground. Now the earthling is told he will fight the very earth he came from until he returns to it, dust to dust. The intimacy of origin becomes the sorrow of the end. And then in the middle of judgment, a small act of grace. The man names his wife Chava, Eve, because she is the mother of all living, Chai. In the shadow of a death sentence, he names her for life. And God clothes them. The fig leaves they made are replaced with garments of skin, the first covering, given, not earned. Then the exile. Lest they take also from the tree of life and live forever in their broken state, they are sent out, and cherubim, with a flaming sword turning every way, guard the way back. The gate closes, but notice the mercy folded into the merciless. To live forever now would be a curse. The closed gate is also a promise that this is not the final word. The guardians at the gate would have been familiar to the story's first heroes. Across the ancient Near East, colossal winged figures, the human-headed bulls and lions of Assyria and Babylon, stood watch at the thresholds of temples and palaces, guarding the holy from the common. Genesis sets these same great guardians at the edge of Eden. The garden was a sanctuary, and like every sanctuary, it is now kept. Genesis 4 steps outside the garden into the world we now recognize, a world of work, worship, family, and violence. Adam and Eve have two sons. Cain, the elder, works the ground. Abel keeps the flocks, and already the names are telling. Abel's name in Hebrew is hevel, breath, vapor, fleeting nothing. It is the very word the book of Ecclesiastes will repeat. Vanity, vanity, a breath that is here and gone. The narrator names the victim before a blow is struck, for how briefly he will last. The tragedy is written into the syllables. Both brothers bring an offering. Abel brings the firstborn of his flock, the fat portions, the best, and the first. Of Cain's, the text says only that he brought some of the fruit of the ground. The difference the story lingers on is not crop versus lamb, but the whole heart versus the leftover. God regards Abel's gift. Cain's face falls. God speaks to Cain, a warning, in one of the most vivid images in Genesis. Sin is crouching at the door. Its desire is for you, but you must rule over it. The Hebrew, chatat, rovets, pictures sin as a predator lying in wait at the threshold, ready to spring. Anger has not yet become murder. There is still, God says, a door Cain can choose to close. Cain leads his brother to the field and kills him. Then God asks a second question, "Where is your brother?" And Cain answers with the line that has echoed ever since, "Am I my brother's keeper?" The word is shomer, the same verb from the garden, where the human was placed to keep, to guard. He was made to be a keeper. He asks the question as if the answer were no. Your brother's blood, God says, cries out to me from the ground, from the adamah again. The same earth that received Abel's blood will no longer yield its strength to Cain. He is sent east, a restless wanderer. And yet even here, God sets a mark on Cain and art, a sign not to brand him, but to protect him. Judgment and still a guarding hand. From Cain's line, the world fills quickly, the first city, the first tents and herds, the first music, the first bronze and iron. Human culture is born east of Eden, but so is something else. Lamech, Cain's descendant, sings the Bible's first poem, a boast of vengeance. If Cain is avenged sevenfold, then Lamech 77-fold. Violence, once loosed, does not hold still. It escalates. Set these two chapters side by side, and a pattern appears. In each, a temptation and a fall. In each, God comes asking a question, "Where are you? Where is your brother?" In each, a curse and an exile eastward, away from his presence. And in each, folded into the judgment, a mercy, a covering of skin, a protecting mark. Genesis tells the same story twice and teaches us how to read it. The fracture, its slow unraveling, and a grace that will not let go. But the chapter does not end in the dark. Adam and Eve have another son, Seth, and Seth a son of his own. And then a quiet line, easy to miss. In those days, people began to call upon the name of the Lord, Ihu. After the fruit, the exile, the blood, a first faint turning back. The story of ruin has, threaded through it, the first thread of return. The serpent's question, the fruit, the fig leaves, the closed gate, the fallen face, the crouching sin, the brother's blood, and buried in the curses, a promise and a mark that guards, and a name called upon in the dark. That is Genesis 3 and 4. Next time, the long line of generations, and a world grown so violent that heaven resolves to begin again, Genesis 5 and 6, and the coming of the flood.